August 21st, 1944. Supreme Headquarters, Allied Expeditionary Force, Versailles. The mahogany table in the conference room bears the weight of maps, reports, and the exhausted elbows of men trying to manage the impossible. General Dwight D. Eisenhower sits at the head, his face showing the strain of commanding the largest military operation in human history. Around him, the brain trust of the Allied war effort, logistics officers, intelligence chiefs, operational commanders, men who've spent years planning for this moment only to discover their greatest enemy isn't German resistance, but simple mathematics. "Gentlemen," Eisenhower begins, his voice cutting through the cigarette smoke, "we have achieved what we thought impossible. We've broken out of Normandy, shattered the German defensive line, and have their army in full retreat. And now we're about to lose it all because we can't deliver gasoline to our own tanks." The irony is bitter. Operation Cobra has succeeded beyond anyone's wildest dreams. General George S. Patton's Third Army has knifed through France like a hot blade through butter, advancing 30, sometimes 50 miles per day. His tank commanders are literally racing each other to be first across the next river, the next town, the next step toward Germany. The Wehrmacht, the once invincible German war machine, is collapsing. Intelligence reports describe columns of enemy soldiers trudging eastward without equipment, without officers, without hope. This should be the moment of triumph. Instead, it's becoming a logistical nightmare. Colonel Frank Ross, Chief of Transportation for the European Theater, stands to deliver his briefing. The numbers on his charts tell a story of impending disaster. Our supply situation is critical. The port of Cherbourg, our only major facility, can handle 7,000 tons daily. We need 20,000. Antwerp won't be operational for at least 2 months. Every single bean, bullet, and gallon of gas has to be trucked from the Normandy beaches. That's 350 miles to the front lines, over roads the Germans destroyed during their retreat. He pauses, letting the geography sink in. A Sherman tank burns 5 gallons of fuel per mile. A single infantry division requires 650 tons of supplies daily. Patton's Third Army alone needs 400,000 gallons of fuel per day. At our current delivery rate, we can supply him with 185,000 gallons. The room is silent. Everyone can do the math. Patton's spectacular advance is about to grind to a halt, not from enemy action, but from empty fuel tanks. Ross continues with the worst news. We're losing 23% of supplies before they reach the front. Truck accidents on damaged roads, Luftwaffe strafing attacks, mechanical breakdowns. For every 4 trucks that leave the beaches, 3 arrive at the destination. "How long to fix this?" Eisenhower asks, though he already knows the answer won't be good. To establish proper supply lines, repair the rail network, build adequate maintenance facilities, 6 to 8 weeks minimum. "We don't have 6 weeks, Eisenhower snaps. "In 6 weeks, the Germans will have regrouped, reinforced the Siegfried Line, and will be looking at a winter campaign through fortified positions. The window to end this war in 1944 is measured in days, not weeks." Lieutenant General Walter Bedell Smith, Eisenhower's chief of staff, leans forward. "What about the Red Ball Express?" The Red Ball Express, the emergency trucking operation hastily organized to rush supplies forward. It's working, barely. Nearly 6,000 trucks running day and night on designated routes marked with red balls to give them priority. But it's not enough, and the losses are catastrophic. The red ball is keeping us alive, Ross admits, but the convoy system is hemorrhaging trucks. We send out formations of 20 to 30 vehicles. The Luftwaffe spots them from miles away. Trucks bunched together on open roads are perfect targets. One fighter pilot with 8 machine guns can destroy a quarter of a convoy in a single pass. The meeting continues for hours. Every solution proposed hits the same walls. Not enough trucks, not enough drivers, not enough time. The greatest military advance in history is about to fail because they can't solve a basic problem humans have faced since the invention of the wheel: how to move stuff from here to there. Part 2. The Man Who Knew Trucks. 90 miles from that conference room, Technical Sergeant Raymond Kowalski sits in the cab of his GMC CCKW, the deuce-and-a-half truck that's become the backbone of Allied logistics. He's staring at smoke rising from the road ahead. Another convoy hit. Another disaster that didn't need to happen. Kowalski climbs down from his cab and walks toward the wreckage. 8 trucks lie scattered across the road like broken toys. Some still burn, sending pillars of black smoke into the Norman sky. The smell hits him first. Burning rubber, spilled fuel, and worse. Always worse. A medic team is already working, pulling bodies from twisted metal. Most of the drivers are dead. When a Focke-Wulf 190 catches a convoy, its 4 20mm cannons don't leave much chance for survival. The trucks, packed with ammunition and fuel, become bombs on wheels. "Same damn thing every time," mutters Private First Class James Booker, another driver surveying the carnage. Jerry spots the convoy, radios his buddies, and they line up for turkey shoot. Kowalski lights a cigarette with hands that barely shake anymore. He's seen this too many times. "We're making it easy for them. 20 trucks nose to tail, might as well paint bullseyes on the canvas." He's 34 years old, older than most of the drivers. Before the war, he spent 15 years hauling steel across Pennsylvania's mountains for Consolidated Freight. No college, no fancy education. He started driving at 16 when his old man got laid off from the mill. But those years taught him things no military manual covered: how to read weather in mountain passes, how to sense when a truck was about to break down, how to move cargo efficiently when every mile cost money and time meant survival. The Army drafted him in 1943, 2 weeks of driver training at Fort Dix, where college boys who'd never driven anything bigger than a Ford tried to teach him about trucks. Then, across the Atlantic, into the grinder of the European theater. Now he watches good men die because nobody in command understands the first thing about real trucking. His outfit, the 3906th Quartermaster Truck Company, has lost 31 trucks and 44 men in 6 weeks. Not from mechanical failure. Kowalski makes sure his drivers maintain their vehicles. Not from getting lost. These boys can read maps. They're dying because the Army insists on running trucks like it's 1918, not 1944. That night, in a commandeered barn that serves as quarters, Kowalski pulls out a notebook he's been keeping. He's tracked every convoy loss, every successful delivery, every pattern he's observed. The pages are filled with numbers, sketches, observations. August 15th, Convoy 447 departed 0800, 24 trucks, standard interval. Luftwaffe intercept, 11:37 hours. 6 trucks destroyed, 11 damaged. Survivors report fighters waiting at choke point near Argenton. August 17th. Single truck, Davidson, departed 0630 independent after convoy delay. Arrived forward depot 1830, no contact. 3 more independent runners same day, all successful. August 19th. Convoy 451, 20 trucks. Mechanical breakdown lead vehicle created 45-minute stationary target. Luftwaffe attack 12:15, 4 Ka, 7 trucks lost. The pattern is clear as daylight to someone who spent his life moving cargo. Convoys are death traps. But every time he's tried to explain this to officers, he's been dismissed. Just another enlisted man who doesn't understand military doctrine. His squad gathers around a makeshift stove, heating sea rations and bitching about everything soldiers have bitched about since Rome. But tonight, Kowalski speaks up. "We're doing this all wrong," he says, his Pittsburgh accent thick with frustration. "Back home, you know what we called running trucks in big convoys? Amateur hour. You bunch up vehicles, you're begging for problems. One breakdown stops everyone. One accident blocks the whole road. And out here," he gestures toward where the Luftwaffe struck, "one fighter pilot gets 20 targets for the price of finding one." Corporal Eddie Martinez, a driver from East Los Angeles, nods. "So what do we do, Sarge? Orders are orders." "Orders are getting us killed," Kowalski replies. He opens his notebook. "Look at this. Every time a truck runs independent, breaks from convoy for whatever reason, success rate is over 95%, but convoy losses are running 23%. That's not bad luck. That's bad tactics." Private Willie Jackson, just 19 and fresh from Alabama, speaks quietly. "My daddy ran moonshine in the hills. Said the revenue men could spot a convoy of runners from miles off, but one car, running quiet and random, ghost in the night." "Exactly," Kowalski says. "The Krauts aren't stupid. They know our convoy schedules, our routes, our bunching points. We're predictable. But what if we weren't?" He sketches on a piece of paper. Instead of 20 trucks leaving at 0800 in formation, you stagger them. First truck leaves at 600, second at 6:15, third at 6:25. Random intervals, different speeds, no pattern. By the time all 20 trucks are on the road, they're spread across 60 miles instead of bunched in a quarter mile. "The fighters can't hit what they can't find," Martinez muses. "And even if they find one truck, it's not worth a fighter's fuel to dive on a single deuce and a half," Kowalski finishes. "They'll save their ammunition for bomber formations or tank columns. We become economically unfeasible targets." The logic is perfect. It's exactly how civilian trucking operations work. Continuous flow, staggered dispatch, flexible routing. But it's the opposite of everything the Army believes about convoy operations. "You gonna tell the brass?" Booker asks. Kowalski laughs bitterly. "Sure." Right after they finish laughing at the sergeant who thinks he knows better than West Point. But he's wrong about one thing. Someone is about to listen. Part 3, The Rejection. August 25th, 1944. Motor Pool Command Post, Argenton Sector. Captain Dennis Hayes reads Kowalski's carefully typed proposal with the expression of a man forced to smell something unpleasant. Hayes is everything the pre-war Army valued. West Point class of '38, garrison experience, a firm believer in doing things by the book. The book says convoys. The book has always said convoys. Sergeant, Hayes says, not looking up from the paper, are you seriously proposing we abandon the convoy system that's been standard military doctrine since World War I? Yes, sir. The evidence clearly shows. The evidence? Hayes's voice rises. You mean your little notebook? Your observations? Sergeant, convoy doctrine was developed by professional military theorists, tested in the Great War, refined over decades. And you think you've discovered something they all missed. Kowalski keeps his voice level. Sir, with respect, those theorists weren't facing fighter aircraft that can spot a convoy from 10,000 feet. They weren't moving through hostile territory where predictability means death. The situation has changed. Our tactics haven't. Hayes stands, his face reddening. Kowalski, you're a goddamn truck driver. Your job is to drive where you're told, when you're told. Leave the tactics to people who went to military schools, not Pittsburgh loading docks. Sir, I've been moving cargo for... I don't care if you've been driving since Moses parted the Red Sea. Hayes slams his hand on the desk. Convoys provide mutual support, security, communications. What happens when one of your scattered trucks breaks down alone on a French road? What happens when German stragglers ambush an isolated vehicle? The same thing that happens now, sir, except instead of losing 20 trucks, we lose one. Hayes's face darkens further. Get out of my office. And if I hear you spreading this defeatist nonsense among the other drivers, you'll be running supplies on foot. Dismissed. Kowalski salutes and leaves. But he doesn't give up. Over the next 3 days, he tries every officer he can find. The responses are depressingly similar. Lieutenant Colonel Martin Burgess, Deputy G4, Logistics. Interesting theory, Sergeant, but logistically impossible. How do we coordinate scattered vehicles, track them, support them? The communication requirements alone. Major David Richardson, Transportation Corps. You're asking us to trust critical supplies to individual drivers operating without supervision? What about desertion, black market theft? Convoy integrity prevents those problems. Captain Sarah Mitchell, one of the few female officers in theater, running a nursing unit that depends on medical supplies. I appreciate innovation, Sergeant, but I need to know my morphine and plasma will arrive together, not scattered across half of France. Each rejection adds to Kowalski's frustration. They're so wedded to doctrine they can't see it's killing men daily. On August 27th, he makes one last attempt at the enlisted men's briefing. Listen up, he shouts over the din of 50 drivers. I know you've all heard the scuttlebutt about my proposal. Some of you think I'm crazy. But how many friends have you lost this month? How many good men burned alive because we insist on bunching up like sheep? The room grows quiet. These men know the cost. I've driven trucks for 20 years. In civilian life, we figured out decades ago that convoys are inefficient, vulnerable, slow. We run staggered dispatch, continuous flow. It works. But the Army knows what it's doing, shouts Staff Sergeant Carl Morrison, a lifer who joined up in 1935. Convoys have worked since trucks were invented. You think you're smarter than every general who ever wore stars? I think I know trucks better than generals who've never driven one. The room erupts in arguments. Some drivers side with Kowalski. They've seen the losses, felt the terror of Luftwaffe attacks. Others, especially career soldiers, defend the system. The shouting match ends only when First Sergeant William Hawkins enters and restores order. Later, Hawkins pulls Kowalski aside. "Ray, I know you mean well. Hell, you might even be right. But this is the Army. We don't do things because they make sense. We do them because that's how they're done. Drop this before you end up in the stockade." The official Army rejection comes in writing the next day. Colonel Ross himself has reviewed the proposal. His memo is brief and brutal. Reference: proposed modification of convoy procedures. Status: denied rationale. The suggested abandonment of convoy protocol represents a fundamental misunderstanding of military logistics and security requirements. Convoy procedures are based on established doctrine proven through decades of military operations. Individual vehicle operations would create unacceptable vulnerabilities, loss of command and control, inability to provide mutual support, exposure to enemy ground forces, communications breakdown, increased desertion, theft risk. Any driver operating outside established convoy parameters will face disciplinary action up to and including court-martial. Frank M. Ross, Colonel, Transportation Corps Commanding. The message is clear. Not only is Kowalski's idea rejected, but attempting to implement it would end his military career. The other drivers avoid him now, not wanting association with someone who challenged the system so openly. Even his supporters stay quiet. August 29, 1944. Kowalski sits alone in the mess tent, pushing reconstituted eggs around his plate. 3 more trucks lost yesterday. 4 men dead. The Germans are retreating so fast that Allied units are capturing their mail before they can read it. But somehow, the Luftwaffe still finds time to hunt supply convoys. He's about to give up, to accept that the Army would rather lose a quarter of its supplies than admit a sergeant might know better than the manual. When fate intervenes in the form of a lieutenant colonel, nobody expects. Part 4. The Listener. Lieutenant General Walter Bedell Smith is not a man who accepts failure. Eisenhower's chief of staff has a reputation for brutal efficiency and volcanic temper. He's also, unlike many senior officers, someone who rose from sergeant to general, who remembers what it's like to be the man actually doing the job rather than planning it. On August 30th, Smith is reviewing the daily logistics reports when a number stops him cold. 23% supply losses. Nearly a quarter of everything shipped forward never arrives. In business terms, that's bankruptcy. In military terms, it's defeat. He starts reading deeper. Not just the summaries that colonels prepare to make themselves look good, but the raw reports from company level. Truck company after action reports, loss statistics, and buried in the pile, a rejected proposal from someone named Technical Sergeant Kowalski. Smith reads it once. Then again, he calls for his aide. "Get me everything on this Kowalski and find Colonel Ross. Now." An hour later, Ross stands at attention in Smith's office, trying to explain why he rejected the proposal. "Sir, the convoy system is fundamental military doctrine. This sergeant is suggesting we abandon all control and coordination. it would be chaos. Chaos? Smith's voice could freeze flame. Colonel, we're losing a quarter of our supplies. Patton's tanks are running on fumes. The British are rationing ammunition. That's not chaos? Sir, the proposal violates every principle of military logistics. Does it work? Ross blinks. Sir, I asked a simple question, Colonel. Would this sergeant's method reduce losses? We don't know, sir. It's never been tested. The theoretical framework suggests... To hell with theoretical frameworks. Smith slams his hand on the desk, making Ross jump. I've got theoretical corpses piling up from your theoretical convoys. Get me this sergeant. Now. 2 hours later, Raymond Kowalski stands in a command tent, facing more brass than he's seen since basic training. 3 full colonels, 2 brigadiers, and Lieutenant General Smith himself. Kowalski's coveralls still smell of diesel and dust. He hasn't shaved in 3 days. He's pretty sure his military career is about to end spectacularly. Smith wastes no time. Sergeant, explain your method. Assume I'm an idiot who's never seen a truck. Kowalski takes a breath, tasting opportunity. Sir, the Germans can't attack what they can't predict. Right now we send convoys at scheduled intervals, 20 trucks, same speed, same route, same time. The Luftwaffe knows exactly where to find us. They just position fighters along known routes and wait. He pulls out his notebook, hands steady despite the audience. But if we stagger departures, send trucks out as soon as they're loaded instead of waiting for convoy assembly, the Germans never know when or where to intercept. Instead of 20 trucks in a quarter mile, you've got 20 trucks spread across 60 miles over 3 hours. What about breakdowns? Asks Brigadier General Raymond Moses, Patton's G4. Same solution as now, sir. We still run escort jeeps on patrol routes, but one breakdown doesn't stop 19 other trucks. And honestly, sir, a broken truck in a convoy is just as vulnerable as one alone, except in a convoy, it blocks everyone behind it. Communications? Another colonel interjects. Radio checkpoints at depots. Drivers report position at designated points. We know where everyone is without bunching them together. Enemy ground forces? Sir, a bypassed German unit that would ambush one truck would ambush 20. At least this way we lose one instead of 20. Smith stares at the notebook, seeing the meticulous records. This isn't some crackpot theory. It's observation backed by data. Colonel Ross says your method is chaos. What do you say? Kowalski straightens. I say it's controlled dispersion, sir, like the difference between marching troops in parade formation and spreading them out in combat. One looks pretty, but makes an easy target. The other actually survives. The tent falls silent. Finally, Smith speaks. Patton needs fuel. Montgomery needs ammunition. Every day we delay costs lives. Sergeant, you have 1 week to prove this works. 20 trucks under your command. If you can cut losses below 10%, we implement system-wide. Ross's face goes purple. General Smith, sir, this is highly irregular. So is losing a war because we're too proud to listen to sergeants. You have your orders, Colonel. Support this test or explain to General Eisenhower why you prevented it. Smith turns to Kowalski. Don't screw this up, Sergeant. A lot of men are counting on fuel and ammunition getting through. I won't let them down, sir. As Kowalski leaves, he hears Smith's final words to the assembled officers. "Gentlemen, we're about to learn whether military doctrine or military reality wins wars." Part 5. The Test. September 1st, 1944, 0500 hours. Aulnoy Supply Depot. The morning mist clings to the ground as 20 trucks roll into the depot for loading. Kowalski stands with a clipboard, watching his hand-picked drivers, men who volunteered despite the risk to their careers. Booker, Martinez, Jackson, and 17 others who trust him enough to bet their lives on his theory. Traditional convoy doctrine would have all 20 trucks wait until the last vehicle is loaded, then depart together in formation. The process usually takes 4 or 6 hours of waiting, then a 14-hour journey at convoy speed. Total time, 20 hours minimum. Kowalski throws out the book. "Johnson, you're loaded. Roll out. Route 7. Maintain whatever speed is safe for conditions." The driver looks uncertain. He's been trained to wait for the convoy. "Sarge, I'm going alone." "You're going smart. Scattered targets, remember? Go." 0600 hours. First truck departs. 0618 hours. Second truck rolls. 0631 hours. Third truck leaves. Each departure is logged, route assigned, estimated arrival time calculated. Instead of a massive convoy departing at noon, Kowalski sends trucks out continuously as they're loaded. By 1100 hours, all 20 vehicles are on the road, but spread across 90 miles of French countryside. The Transportation Corps observer, Major Harrison, watches with visible disgust. "This is chaos, Sergeant. No formation, no interval discipline, no command structure." "That's the point, sir," Kowalski replies, marking another departure. "Predictable patterns get men killed." He's also changed the speed restrictions. Instead of the mandatory 25 Emperor convoy crawl, he's told experienced drivers to run at whatever speed they judge safe. Some sections of road can handle 40 mph. Others, damaged by German demolitions, require 15 mph. His drivers know the difference. "You're exceeding speed regulations," Harrison notes. "I'm maximizing efficiency, sir. A truck doing 40 on a good road spends less time as a target than one doing 25. At 1100 hours, Kowalski climbs into his own truck, the last to depart. He'll run sweep, checking on any breakdowns. As he drives, he reflects on what they're attempting. If this fails, if they lose trucks, men die, and his idea dies with them. But if it works, the first sign of success comes at 1830 hours. Private Johnson radios from 3rd Army's forward depot. Cargo delivered, no enemy contact. Road time, 12.5 hours. That's 90 minutes faster than convoy average, despite running alone. By midnight, 17 of 20 trucks have reported successful delivery. The 3 remaining are Kowalski's sweep truck and 2 vehicles that stopped for minor repairs, flat tires that drivers fixed themselves without delaying anyone else. Day 1, 20 trucks dispatched, 20 delivered, 0 losses, 0 enemy contact. September 2nd, 0530 hours, word has spread through the depot. Kowalski's ghost run succeeded. Drivers from other companies watch as his team loads for day 2. Some volunteer to join. Others mutter about luck and breaking regulations. Today's challenge is different. Intelligence reports increased Luftwaffe activity. If German fighters are hunting, this is when they'll strike. Kowalski adjusts his plan. Instead of using just one route, he assigns 5 different roads. Trucks will take varying paths to the same destination. If the Germans are watching one road, they'll miss trucks on the others. At 0900 hours, his radio crackles. Luftwaffe fighters reported Sector 7. That's directly on Route 7, the main supply road where a traditional convoy would be traveling. But Kowalski only has 4 trucks on that route, scattered across 30 miles. The other 16 are spread across alternate roads. The after-action report comes at 1,000 hours. 2 FW-190s investigated Route 7, made one pass at Corporal Davis's truck. No hits, did not pursue. Fighters returned to base. Davis himself radios. Jerry came down for a look, fired a burst, and left. Guess one truck wasn't worth his ammunition. Day 2, 19 successful deliveries. 1 accident, driver fell asleep, crashed. Loss rate 5%. By day 5, even the skeptics are watching Kowalski's operation with interest. His scattered trucks are achieving the impossible, moving more cargo faster with fewer losses than any convoy in theater. The statistics tell the story. Average delivery time, down 28%. Loss rate, 2.8% versus 23% for convoys. Tonnage delivered, up 41% due to faster turnaround. But the real proof comes from an unexpected source. On September 6th, a captured German pilot is interrogated. When asked about attacking Allied supply lines, he responds through a translator. Your convoys were good hunting, 20, 30 trucks together, worth risking fuel and fighters. But now, trucks everywhere, no pattern. My squadron leader says it's like hunting mice instead of elephants. Not worth the fuel when we need every fighter for bombers. The interrogation report reaches Smith's desk within hours. He reads it, circles a key phrase, and calls for his aide. Get me Eisenhower and promote that goddamn sergeant. Part 6. Revolution. September 7th, 1944. The order goes out over Smith's signature. Headquarters Supreme Allied Expeditionary Force. Subject, modification of motor transport procedures. Effective, immediately. All Red Ball Express operations will adopt staggered individual dispatch, SID, protocols as developed by Technical Sergeant Raymond Kowalski, 3906th QM Truck Company. Key elements: continuous dispatch as vehicles are loaded, variable intervals between departures, multiple route selection, speed at driver discretion based on conditions, radio checkpoint reporting. Convoy operations are suspended, except for combat zones requiring armed escort. Unit commanders will receive training on SID procedures from TSG Kowalski's designated instructors. This modification is based on combat testing showing 90% reduction in transit losses. Implementation is not optional. Walter B. Smith, Lieutenant General, Chief of Staff. The transformation is immediate and dramatic. Within 48 hours, the entire Red Ball Express, 6,000 trucks, abandons traditional convoy operations. Depots that once assembled massive convoys now dispatch vehicles continuously, 24 hours a day. The impact on German interdiction efforts is catastrophic. A Luftwaffe after-action report, captured in October, describes their frustration. Allied supply vehicles now operate without predictable pattern. fighter squadrons report inability to locate profitable targets. Single vehicle interdiction requires excessive fuel expenditure with minimal return. Recommend suspension of supply route hunting in favor of tactical ground support. The Americans have made truck hunting economically impossible. At 3rd Army Headquarters, General Patton notices something extraordinary. His fuel supplies, critically short throughout August, suddenly stabilize. Ammunition arrives consistently. His tanks, immobilized for days, roar back to life. "Who the hell fixed my supply lines?" he demands. When told about Kowalski's system, Patton, never one to praise logistics officers, sends a personal message. "Tell that sergeant he's worth more than a division of infantry. His trucks are giving me the fuel to kill Germans." The statistics from the Red Ball Express's final 8 weeks of operation tell the complete story. Before SID implementation, June-August 1944, trucks lost 743 cargo, delivered 271,000 tons. Average loss rate 23%. Drivers killed 284. After SID implementation, September to November 1944, trucks lost 97 cargo, delivered 412, 193 tons. Average loss rate 2.7%. Drivers killed 31. The staggered dispatch system doesn't just save trucks and lives. It delivers 52% more cargo with fewer vehicles. The efficiency gain comes from eliminating convoy assembly time, reducing accident pileups, and allowing trucks to operate at optimal speeds. But the impact goes beyond numbers. The psychological effect on German forces is profound. Wehrmacht reports describe the impossibility of predicting Allied supply movements. Luftwaffe pilots, already stretched thin, waste fuel searching for targets that no longer mass conveniently. More importantly, the continuous flow of supplies allows Allied forces to maintain momentum. The pause that Germany desperately needs to reorganize never comes. Patton reaches the German border. Montgomery pushes through Belgium. The ports are still destroyed. The distances still vast. But somehow, the supplies keep flowing. Part 7. Recognition and Legacy. November 18th, 1944. A small ceremony at Transportation Corps Headquarters. Technical Sergeant Raymond Kowalski stands at attention as Brigadier General Frank Ross, the same officer who rejected his proposal, pins the Bronze Star on his chest. The citation reads, "For exceptionally meritorious service in direct support of combat operations, Technical Sergeant Kowalski developed and implemented innovative logistics procedures that reduced supply losses by 90%, directly contributing to the success of Allied operations in France and Belgium. His initiative and practical expertise saved countless lives and vital war material." Ross, to his credit, adds personal words. "Sergeant, I was wrong. You saw what we missed because you understood the job, not just the theory. The Army needs more men willing to challenge bad doctrine." Kowalski accepts the medal quietly. No grand speeches, no boasting, just a quiet "thank you, sir," from a man who did his job the best way he knew how. But the real recognition comes from his fellow drivers. That night, in a liberated French café, over 100 Red Ball Express drivers gathered to toast the man who kept them alive. These men, black and white, city and rural, educated and not, understand what Kowalski achieved. He didn't just change regulations, he saved their friends. Private Willie Jackson raises his glass to the Sarge who told the brass to go to hell politely and proved trucks don't need to die in bunches. The room erupts in cheers. Part 8. The Lasting Impact. The war ends. Kowalski returns to Pittsburgh in January 1946, mustering out with sergeant stripes, a Bronze Star, and stories he rarely tells. He goes back to driving trucks for Consolidated Freight. No fanfare, no book deals, no victory tours, just a working man returning to work. But the military doesn't forget. In 1947, the U.S. Army Transportation Corps formally adopts staggered individual dispatch as official doctrine. The manual opens with a dedication based on combat-proven methods developed by Sergeant Raymond Kowalski, ETO 1944. At Fort Lee, Virginia, the Transportation School makes SID a required course. Young lieutenants learn that sometimes the best innovations come from the people actually doing the job. They study Kowalski's notebooks, his hand-drawn charts showing loss rates and delivery times. The Korean War proves the doctrine's flexibility. When Chinese forces try to interdict UN supply lines, scattered dispatch makes their job nearly impossible. Vietnam sees further refinement, armed convoys when necessary, but still staggered to prevent mass casualties. The civilian world takes notice. By the 1960s, trucking companies adopt continuous dispatch as standard practice. The old convoy model, trucks leaving terminals in groups, disappears. Federal Express, United Parcel Service, and eventually Amazon build empires on logistics principles a sergeant figured out under fire. In 1969, a young PhD candidate named Martin Schlesinger writes his dissertation on military logistics innovation. He tracks down Kowalski, now 59 and still driving. Their interview, conducted in a truck stop outside Pittsburgh, captures the essence of the man. Schlesinger: did you realize you were revolutionizing military logistics? Kowalski: I was trying to keep my boys alive. The brass said convoys were safer. I knew trucks. I knew they were wrong. Schlesinger: your method influenced civilian shipping worldwide. Companies credit SID principles with billions in efficiency gains. Kowalski: that's nice. You gonna eat those fries? Even in academic discussion, Kowalski remains what he's always been, a practical man focused on practical things. Desert Storm, 1991. The U.S. military moves more tonnage faster than any force in history. Trucks flow continuously from Saudi ports to forward positions, scattered across hundreds of miles of desert. Iraqi forces, expecting massed convoys, find nothing but individual vehicles impossible to target effectively. A young transportation officer briefs General Norman Schwarzkopf. We're using modified Kowalski protocols, sir. Continuous dispatch, varied routing, unpredictable timing. Kowalski: a sergeant from World War II, sir. He figured out that bunching vehicles creates vulnerability. We're just following his playbook with GPS assistance. The ironies of history. Satellites and computers executing a principle discovered by a man with a notebook and a pencil. Epilogue: The Quiet Revolutionary. Raymond Kowalski, dies on October 15, 1983, age 73. Heart attack in his own driveway, having just parked his pickup after visiting grandchildren. The Pittsburgh Post-Gazette runs a small obituary. Local trucker, WBBQ veteran. They mention his Bronze Star, but not what he earned it for. His funeral is small. Family, friends from the trucking company, a few aging veterans from the 3906th. But in Washington, at the Pentagon's Transportation Corps' offices, flags fly at half-staff. Most civilians don't notice or understand why a trucker's death merits military honors. At Fort Lee's Transportation Museum, opened in 1987, there's a permanent exhibit on the Red Ball Express. A full section is dedicated to Kowalski. His original notebook sits in a climate-controlled case open to the page where he first sketched the concept of staggered dispatch. Next to it, a photograph, Kowalski standing beside his deuce-and-a-half, cigarette in hand, looking exactly like what he was, a working man who understood his job better than anyone with stars on their shoulders. The placard reads, "Sometimes the most important innovations come not from laboratories or war colleges, but from the people actually doing the work." Technical Sergeant Raymond Kowalski saved more Allied lives through logistics innovation than many generals did through tactics. His willingness to challenge doctrine, combined with practical expertise, fundamentally changed how militaries and businesses move material worldwide. In 2003, the Army Logistics University adds Kowalski to its Hall of Fame. The citation notes that principles he developed are incorporated into FedEx's hub-and-spoke system, Amazon's distributed delivery network, UPS's package flow technology, military logistics doctrine in 47 nations. His grandson, Michael Kowalski, accepts the honor. In his speech, he shares a story. "Grandpa Ray never talked much about the war, but once I asked him about his Bronze Star. He said, 'Mike, I just noticed something everyone else was too smart to see. Bunching up makes you a target. Spreading out makes you hard to hit. The Army spent millions teaching officers tactics. All I did was remember what every trucker knows. Space equals safety.'" Today, at the Army's National Training Center, officers study the Kowalski paradigm, the idea that doctrinal blindness can be more dangerous than enemy action. War colleges worldwide teach his case as an example of innovation from unexpected sources. In logistics courses, his three principles remain gospel. Predictability enables enemy action. Dispersion creates resilience. Those doing the job often understand it better than those managing it. But perhaps the most fitting tribute comes from an unexpected source. In 2018, the German Military History Museum in Dresden opens an exhibit on Wehrmacht logistics. A section on failed interdiction efforts includes this assessment. The American adoption of distributed transport in late 1944 represents a watershed moment in military logistics. Luftwaffe pilot Heinrich Müller recalls, "We called them ghost trucks everywhere and nowhere. By the time you found one, it wasn't worth the fuel to attack." The mathematician in Berlin said the Americans had made truck hunting a losing proposition. One sergeant changed the economics of air interdiction. The last surviving member of Kowalski's original test team, James Booker, dies in 2019 at age 96. In his final interview, he reflects, Ray saved my life, saved all our lives, not with a rifle or heroics, but by asking, why are we doing it this way? And having the guts to push for a better answer. 20,000 trucks ran the red ball. Because of Ray, most of us made it home. The mathematics of revolution. A Pentagon study in 2020 attempts to quantify Kowalski's impact. Lives saved directly. Red Ball Express. 253 tonnage delivered due to efficiency gains. 141,000 additional tons. Reduction in vehicle losses, 646 trucks. Economic value of efficiency improvements, $2.1 billion as 2020 dollars. German resources diverted from effective use, estimated 2,000 fighter sorties. But numbers can't capture the human element. They can't measure the families kept whole, the children who grew up with fathers, the communities that welcomed home men who otherwise would have died on French roads. Final lessons. Today's military logistics operators work with tools Kowalski couldn't imagine: satellite tracking, AI-optimized routing, predictive maintenance algorithms. But the core principle remains his: vulnerable concentration versus resilient distribution. In Afghanistan and Iraq, convoys still formed for security in hostile areas, but used Kowalski spacing and timing when possible. Supply sergeants, whether they know it or not, apply lessons learned on French roads. In 1944, the business world internalized these lessons even more thoroughly. Jeff Bezos reportedly kept a copy of Kowalski's notebook reproduction in his office during Amazon's early days. This sergeant understood flow, Bezos told an interviewer. Not warehouses, not trucks, but flow. Everything we do derives from that insight. Modern just-in-time manufacturing, same-day delivery, distributed warehousing, all trace intellectual lineage to a moment when one sergeant said, "This is stupid. We're dying for doctrine instead of thinking." The man himself. Those who knew Kowalski describe a man utterly unchanged by his historical significance. He drove trucks until retirement at 65. He bowled on Thursdays, went to Mass on Sundays, complained about the Pirates pitching. When the Army invited him to lecture at the War College in 1978, he declined. "I said what I had to say in 1944. You fellas figure out the rest." His wife Mary, who died in 1981, once told an interviewer, "Ray came home from the war the same man who left, maybe a little quieter. He'd sit sometimes, smoking on the porch, and I knew he was thinking about his boys, the ones who didn't make it. He felt responsible for every life, even though he saved so many." Their daughter Patricia became a logistics manager for U.S. Steel, carrying on the family tradition in a different form. She keeps her father's Bronze Star in her office next to a photo of him with his truck. "Dad taught me that every system can be improved if you're willing to ask why it works that way." The lasting echo. In 2024, marking the 80th anniversary of the Red Ball Express, the Army conducts a staff ride to the original French routes. Young transportation officers walk the roads where Kowalski's drivers proved dispersal beats concentration. They study the mathematics of survival, how spreading 20 trucks across 60 miles in 3 hours creates an equation German fighters couldn't solve. Colonel Sarah Chen, leading the tour, stops at a memorial near Chartres, marking a convoy ambush site. 15 men died here on August 20th, 1944, she tells her students. 2 weeks later, this road carried 40 trucks daily using Kowalski protocols. 0 losses. The difference wasn't technology or weapons, it was thinking. She holds up a reproduction of Kowalski's notebook. A sergeant with a high school education revolutionized military logistics because he did what innovators do. He looked at reality instead of doctrine. He asked not, "What do the manuals say?" but "What actually works?" The officers take notes on tablets that would seem like magic to Kowalski, but the lesson translates across decades and technologies. Innovation often comes from those closest to the problem, if leadership has the wisdom to listen. The final mile. There's a stretch of Interstate 76 in Pennsylvania between Pittsburgh and Philadelphia that truckers call Kowalski's Run. It's not an official name. You won't find it on maps. But older drivers know it, and they'll tell you why. It's the route Ray Kowalski drove for Consolidated Freight after the war, where he spent 30 years quietly applying the lessons that saved an army. Some nights, when fog rolls in and trucks space themselves out for safety, their taillights stretching into the distance like a red constellation, you can see his principle in action. Not bunched for false security, but distributed for real safety. Each driver making decisions based on conditions, not rigid rules. It's a small legacy for most eyes. Trucks maintaining safe intervals on a foggy highway. But for those who understand, it's a monument to the power of practical wisdom over theoretical doctrine. Every safe arrival is a tiny victory for the idea that saved the Red Ball Express, that sometimes the most profound innovations come from simply paying attention to what works and having the courage to say what doesn't. Ray Kowalski never sought glory. He never wrote memoirs, gave paid speeches, or traded on his wartime service. He drove trucks, raised a family, and lived quietly with the knowledge that when it mattered most, he spoke up. His idea, born from 15 years of civilian experience and crystallized in the crucible of war, rippled outward in ways he never imagined. From the Normandy beaches to Afghanistan's mountain passes, from FedEx sorting facilities to Amazon fulfillment centers, from military doctrine to MBA case studies, the ghost of a Pittsburgh truck driver reminds us that expertise isn't about degrees or ranks. It's about understanding your job, observing what works, and having the courage to challenge what doesn't, even when the entire weight of institutional authority says you're wrong. In the end, Raymond Kowalski's legacy isn't just about trucks or logistics or military innovation. It's about the power of practical knowledge and the courage to speak truth to authority. It's proof that one person paying attention and refusing to accept because that's how we've always done it as an answer can change the world. Somewhere tonight, a truck driver spaces out from the vehicle ahead, maintaining safe interval. A logistics manager staggers departures to prevent bunching. A military convoy uses distributed timing to avoid presenting a masked target. They probably don't know Ray Kowalski's name, but they're all driving in his tracks, following routes mapped out by a sergeant who looked at dying men and burning trucks and said, "There's got to be a better way." And there was. There always is, if someone has the eyes to see it and the courage to speak it. The trucks roll on, scattered and safe, carrying Ray Kowalski's revolution down every highway, across every supply route, into every corner of a world that moves a little more efficiently because one man refused to accept that convoys were the only way. Please support this video with a like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed it. Goodbye, and see you all soon.